So, I haven't recorded a video like this ever. Like, I've never talked about the topic that's going to be discussed in this. So, this is kind of new territory for me, if I'm being completely honest. Hey guys, IceWire here, and today we're going to be doing something non-gaming related and something a little bit more on the serious side of things. So, as you can tell by the title, we are talking about autism. Which you're probably thinking, you're a gaming channel, why are you bringing this up? And it is because, me personally, I have autism. Like, I'm on the spectrum. I was diagnosed with Asperger's specifically when I was 3 years old. So, it's part of my life, and I have had some people express interest in me sharing what it's like having, being on the spectrum. So that's kind of what today is about. I know it's a little different, but bear with me, have an open mind. I promise I'll make it interesting. Now, I was a little stuck thinking of what specifically to talk about, because I know I wanted to talk about this, but I didn't know what exactly to focus on. And yeah, then the topic kind of came to me. So I'm going to be talking about basic stereotypes that I kind of put on autistic women that aren't all necessarily true. We're a lot more chill than a lot of people think we are, so let's get right into it. So the first big one is that we have emotions, believe it or not. Now this might seem like a general one, but when an autistic woman is portrayed in media, we're often kind of seen as the stoic, humorless character, very serious and doesn't show too much emotion, if not any at all. And that's not necessarily the case. We're a lot I would say that we are more emotional than the average woman. That's not to say that we, cry all the time. I know for me personally, I tend to feel emotions a lot more strongly than others. So happiness, sadness, I feel those much more intensely than I think most women typically would. And then there's the whole, autistic women can't take a joke or don't have a sense of humor. And that's not true at all. We find things funny and we can crack a joke every now and then. I know me personally, my brand of joking is special, but it's a loud joke. I do make jokes. I do have a laugh. I find things funny. If you've watched any video of mine, whether it's a reaction video or part of a Let's Play I've done, anything like that, you'll know that I have a bit of a sense of humor and I have laughed at things. So the case that autistic women aren't emotionally present is kind of ridiculous, I think, and a bit inaccurate considering that, yeah, we have emotions. That's kind of... we feel things, man. Now, that brings me to the second point, and that is, we don't all like math. Now, I don't know what it is, but literally every, representation of an autistic woman in media has, had this obsession with maths or science, and that's... I don't know why that's a stereotype. I know that some people associate autism with savant syndrome, and it's not always the case. Now, of course, I can only speak from my personal experience, which is where most of my personal thoughts on this come from, and I know me personally, I don't like math. As a matter of fact, I failed miserably at math in high school during my exams. Not every autistic girl is into math. And I don't know why that's a stereotype, but it is. I think it's also a stereotype just for autism in general, but just not everyone is into math. I don't know where exactly that comes from. I kind of blame the Big Bang Theory a little bit for that, but yeah, it's just not true. Not everyone likes math, and if you do, great. But I know I can only speak for myself personally, and I know that I don't like it. And I've never had math as a skill or a special interest at all, so Yeah. Well, speaking of special interest, that brings me to the third point, and that is fixations. Now, if you're not familiar with how autism works, or you are a little bit familiar, but you're not like fully educated, I guess, a lot of people on the spectrum tend to get these fixations on certain things. So something in particular will become that person's special interest. For quite a few people, it's trains, believe it or not. I've known a lot of autistic people, on this, generally boys, all boys mostly, that have trains as their special interest. They fucking love them. Now, I know for a lot of autistic women that I've seen just from like going through subreddits on Reddit dedicated to women with Asperger's or women with autism, whatever you want to call it, that a lot of their special interests have been animals, or it's books, or even video games. Now, my personal interests growing up, as a child, as a wee small babe, I was very much interested in dragons. And that's still true to this day. I'm not as obsessed with dragons as I was as a kid, but when I was a kid, let me tell you, that was my shit. Just any animal-like creature in general, like, that was my thing. That was my thing. And my room would be pretty much completely covered and littered in animal toys. Like, I just loved animals a bunch. And I grew up on a farm, so that also kind of fueled that special interest even further. So when it comes to fixations, it can, it could be animals, it can be something creative, it could be books or video games, like I said, it can be anything. And I feel like a lot of people on the spectrum kind of get lumped into the same stereotype, if you will. So if you think of an autistic person, you're probably picturing a little boy who really likes his trains a lot, and he's probably good at math. Basically, you're probably thinking of Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory as your source, I guess you could say. But that isn't necessarily the case, and I did want to talk about that because I know, just me personally, that kind of does annoy me that we kind of get lumped into that category, because it's not necessarily true all the time. Not that it isn't true for some people, but for the most part, it can be, interests can range. It's varied as heck. And finally, this is a strange point for me to bring up, but we are interested in romance, believe it or not. There's kind of this image that kind of gets put into a lot of people's heads that, because autistic women aren't as emotional as boys are, that we're not into or even remotely interested in romance. And that's not the case for everybody. Now, whether you're interested in romance or not interested in romance, it's all up to your personal preference, whether you are or aren't. And there's nothing wrong with wanting or not wanting romance in general, but I know for me personally, I'm interested in romance. I'm engaged, so I'd say I've done well for myself in the romance department. But of course we're interested in romance. We're interested in all the things that come with it too, like, having a crush on someone, having a first fixation on the character we're watching in a TV show or movie, dating, and, getting down. I'm trying to keep this as, PG as possible, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. We're interested in all of that. It's human nature, of course, that we're interested in that. And if you're not, then that's fine. There are plenty of, autistic women that don't necessarily focus on that, and that's just as okay as those that are. Anyway, before I can dig myself into an even more awkward hole than I already am digging myself into, that's it for the rest of the video. And yeah, I just wanted to share my thoughts on this because it's something that bothers me personally. I don't like being lumped into this one stereotype that everybody thinks is true and then therefore treats me accordingly to that stereotype. And I know a lot of other women do feel like that as well. So that's what this video was all about, and I hope you guys found it interesting and, you know, somewhat educational, I guess. This was a bit of a different topic for me to talk about personally, and I'm a little nervous about it going out there, but fuck it. Consider supporting me on Patreon, as it feels to go for my content's quality and the variety and production of said content that you guys get to see all here on the channel. And of course, a massive thank you to my current patrons. They are, of course, Cosmoronic, Nicholas Montoya, Caroline Richardson, Cooladora, and Bow and Arrows. And if you want to see your name shouted out at the end of the video like these guys, do hop over onto Patreon and have a look around at the cool rewards on offer. Anyway, it's IceWire signing off, and I'll see you introverts later next time on the channel. Have a lovely day / night wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!